Second rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club.
He exists in the shadows of your own mind,
whispering what you secretly desire but never dare to admit. How does one man become two? And why does society's pressure push us toward our darker selves? Tonight, we explore the psychological fracture that gives birth to Tyler.
Meet the narrator, a man trapped in a cycle of insomnia, consumerism, and emptiness. He works a job that numbs him. He buys things that don't fill him. He attends support groups for diseases he doesn't have, just to feel something real. This video will uncover how suppressed emotions, social alienation, and rigid masculinity create a split personality. You'll learn the internal mechanisms behind Tyler's emergence, the consequences of living a double life, and how the film dramatizes psychological fragmentation in its rawest form. Because Tyler Durden isn't a person. He's a symptom. Let's start with the life he's living. Corporate job, endless meetings, airplane peanuts, and hotel rooms. He decorates his apartment like a catalog. Every chair, every lamp, every piece chosen to prove he's someone. But inside, he's hollow. He can't sleep. He can't feel. He can't remember the last time he felt alive. He's a ghost in his own life. And the worst part? He knows it. He knows he's supposed to want more than this, but he doesn't know what more even looks like anymore. So, he goes to support groups. He pretends to be dying just so he can cry in a room full of strangers. And for a moment, it works. For a moment, he feels human again. But it's not enough. Because the real problem isn't insomnia. It's that he's buried every part of himself that doesn't fit the mold. His anger, his desire, his hunger for meaning, all of it shoved down deep, where no one can see it, not even him. And when you suppress that much for that long, something inside you starts to crack. Society tells him to be polite, to be productive, to be obedient, but his instincts scream for rebellion, for chaos, for freedom. And caught between those two forces, his mind does the only thing it can to survive. It splits.
So how does Tyler Durden come to life? Let's break it down. First, dissociative identity formation. When a person experiences extreme internal conflict, when their true desires are so incompatible with their lived reality, the mind can create an alternate persona to carry what they can't. Tyler isn't random, he's intentional. He's everything the narrator wishes he could be but never allowed himself. Confident, fearless, free. He doesn't care what people think. He doesn't follow the rules. He says what he wants, he does what he wants. He is what he wants. And the narrator? He's been suffocating under the weight of expectation. Society tells him what masculinity should look like: controlled, rational, productive, silent. But inside him is rage, raw, primal, untamed rage, at his job, at his life, at himself for accepting it all. And because he can't express it as himself, Tyler becomes the outlet. Tyler embodies the suppressed masculinity the narrator was taught to hide, the violence, the dominance, the refusal to bow. But it's not just about masculinity, it's about autonomy. Tyler represents the search for meaning in a meaningless world. He doesn't buy into consumerism, he doesn't chase comfort. He builds something real, something dangerous, something that matters. And the narrator? He's mesmerized because Tyler is everything he's terrified to become and everything he secretly worships. It's a projection, it's idealization, it's envy and fear wrapped into one. Tyler is the part of him he denied for so long that it became a stranger, and now that the stranger is in control. But here's the thing about splitting yourself in two. You lose track of which half is real. The narrator starts participating in increasingly reckless acts, fighting in basements, bombing buildings, building an army. At first, it feels like liberation, but slowly the lines blur. He can't tell where he ends and Tyler begins. His relationship with Marla falls apart, because how do you love someone when you don't even know who you are? She sees through him. She sees the fracture, and it terrifies her. His moral compass shatters. What used to feel wrong now feels justified. What used to feel dangerous now feels necessary. And Tyler keeps pushing further because Tyler doesn't have limits. Tyler doesn't have fear. Tyler is the id unleashed with no conscience to hold him back. The narrator loses control of his own life. He becomes a passenger in his own body, watching himself destroy everything, unable to stop it. Because stopping Tyler would mean admitting he wanted this all along, that the chaos, the violence, the rebellion, it was never Tyler's desire. It was his. And that truth, that's the scariest part. The film illustrates the danger of ignoring your internal needs, of burying your desires so deep they mutate into something uncontrollable. Tyler isn't the villain. He's the consequence.
So what does this mean for us? Because most of us won't create an alternate personality, but we will ignore parts of ourselves. We'll suppress anger because it's inappropriate. We'll bury desires because they're selfish. We'll conform to roles that suffocate us because it's easier than rebellion. And slowly, those suppressed parts start leaking out in passive aggression, in self-sabotage, in quiet resentment, or in extreme cases, in a complete internal fracture. The lesson here is integration. Confronting the parts of yourself you've hidden is healthier than denial. Acknowledging your anger doesn't make you violent. Acknowledging your desires doesn't make you selfish. It makes you whole. Society will always try to shape you into something manageable, something predictable, something safe. But if you let that pressure override your authentic self, you'll lose track of who you even are. And that disconnection, that's where the danger lives. Because when you don't know yourself, you can't control yourself. Even the smallest emotional disconnect can snowball. A job you hate becomes a decade of resentment. A relationship you settled for becomes quiet rage. A life you didn't choose becomes a prison you built yourself. And eventually, something inside you will break. Maybe not into Tyler Durden, but into something just as destructive. The key is to face it before it fractures you, to question the roles you've accepted, to redefine meaning on your own terms, to allow yourself to feel, even when it's uncomfortable, because the alternative isn't peace, it's war, an internal war you can't win. Suppression leads to dissociation. Dissociation leads to the creation of Tyler. And Tyler is chaos incarnate. He's the part of you that refuses to be silenced anymore, the part that will burn everything down just to feel alive again. The central theme of Fight Club isn't about violence. It's about what happens when you ignore your own needs for too long, when you let society define you instead of defining yourself, when you bury your desires so deep they become a stranger inside you. Unacknowledged desires and unmet needs can fracture the mind, and once that fracture happens, putting yourself back together is a war. So here's the question. What parts of yourself have you been hiding? What emotions have you buried because they didn't fit the script? What version of you exists only in your mind, whispering quietly, waiting for permission to break free? Because Tyler Durden isn't fiction. He's the shadow side of every person who's ever felt invisible. And if you don't face him, he'll find his own way out.